You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts, Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, along with Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian and Andrew the Rock Lobster GIOVINAZZI from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means it is time once again to commence episode 2 of the bi-weekly options smorgasbord known as the Option Block. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever-compelling, ever-insightful Options Insider Radio Network. You know, it is overwhelming how many freaking outlets there are now carrying or trying to carry our stuff. It literally does seem like every day there are 2 or 3 new podcast or on-demand audio outlets or communities for podcasts. It's unbelievable. I'm sure if I pull my email right now, there'd probably be 3 or 4 of them in there looking to carry our stuff. So there are a legion of on-demand places for you guys to go to get this content. Of course, if you want to upgrade to the more live stuff, you want to get in there, ask questions, kick the tires, chat with the other folks in there, get on over to the Plus. If you want to go above and beyond, get the awesome Pro Q&As. We had a one-of-a-kind Pro Q&A this week. I'll just put it that way. It was very impressive. I think even for me, I'm not really a huge blackjack guy. It was pretty fascinating. And so guaranteed you will learn something, get your values worth out of that one at some time down the road, definitely. And of course, you always get the oddities. There's so much odd stuff going on these days. That show could probably be every day or at least 5 hours at the end of the week. We cram a lot of living into oddities at the end of the week. You know where to go to get all that fun stuff and a whole bunch more. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro. And wherever you are out there on this fine blue orb of ours, keep sending in those questions or comments. We do love to hear from all of you guys and gals out there. Let's see who we're hearing from on ye old program today. First, let's go out to the quiet, the tranquil hinterlands of Chicago, where we are joined once again by the uncleest of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike TOSAW. He has broken free from prison and is now free to join us. Mr. Uncle Mike, welcome back to the program. I did see some interesting, some might even say delicious backdrops over there on the backdrop of the day challenge for Uncle Mike. What was on the docket today, sir?
Didn't have anything today, but stay tuned. There will be plenty more coming in the future.
I will say one of those backdrops this week made me a little bit hungry. If you don't know what I'm talking about, listeners, head on over to @Mike TOSAW, TOSAW. Give him a follow so you can see what all the cool kids are watching over there on the old Twitters these days. And of course, let's go on out to a land where he doesn't do any of that Twitter stuff. Well, he does some. He retweets this show. That's kind of about it. He's not posting videos from the county lockup. He is the Rock Lobster himself, Mr. Andrew GIOVINAZZI from OptionPit.com, by way of Carmen Line Capital, by way of the Cyclops scanner. If you don't know what that is, join us on Options Oddities every Friday to find out more. Mr. Rock Lobster, how go things? Are you gearing up for the return of the Cyclops tomorrow, sir?
That's right. It is Friday. It is the It is the day of the the one-eyed order flow. Yeah, I have been looking at a little order flow lately. So there is some interesting stuff afoot. I must confess.
That's the great thing about these markets, and the great thing about all this meme madness kind of layered on top of it is that if you miss one thing, you miss something, there's always something else the next day for you to fixate on. So everyone out there who's got the FOMO, in some regards, I understand. In other regards, you should probably have less of that now than ever because there's always another one out there. So see if you can find some today. Let's get right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the Trading Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Trading Block, the portion of the show we break down what the heck is trading and a markedly different environment, a markedly different market from our last show on Monday, listeners. Effectively, the theme for today is pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Sell off. What sell off? Don't look over there. Look over here because everything is green and rosy over here. You'll recall on our last show, it seemed like the sky was falling. Everything was falling out of bed. Most of the major indices were off well over 2, sometimes 2.5. They got up to over 3, I believe, on some areas of the market there on Monday. Most of the major vol products were up over 8 points by the time our show started. They got up even higher throughout the session out there. Coming into today's show, like I said, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Everything's pretty much back to where we were. VIX is at about an 1875, kicking off the showtime, down a little over 8 points from our last show, about 8.25. So right back pretty much in line with where it was at the end of last week. VVIX at about a 110, down, about 30 points. That's pretty much how much we gapped up on Monday there for VVIX. VXX at about, 25.75 when we kicked off the show. That's down about 5 points from where it was on Monday's show, and UVXY at about 21.75, down a whopping 6.5 from where it was this time last show. Both of those at or flirting with a 30 handle not too long ago. And VolQ 17.5, down 6 points. So effectively, you missed nothing, listeners. Nothing happened this week. Very quiet week. Nothing at all on the docket. Let's go out to the land of Uncle Mike again because it's an Uncle Mike type of day. Uncle Mike, sir, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Nothing going on over there, sir.
Absolutely nothing to see here, folks. Just move on. Just move on. I think that it's very difficult to not want to buy this market based on the dip. After the dip, I was very cautious and I did not want to do it, but I did end up adding some deltas on Monday after the show. I didn't want to do it, but I did it. And I'm obviously glad I did right now.
They forced your hand. They twisted your arm to buy more deltas, sir.
I couldn't resist when we have that much of a downturn. And then towards the end of the day, we're leveling off a little bit. I hate doing it on days like that, honestly. But it was just because we leveled off a little bit towards the end of the day. And then I got lucky at the very end of the day on Monday, just with a quick little rally. And then, of course, the rest of this week we've been doing okay with it, and I did do a very small amount, but I did it with an out of the money butterfly, just because of the fact I didn't want to buy high volatility on just a long call, and I talked about that a little bit on the strategy block on Monday, so that's what I ended up doing. And so on here, it looks like with yesterday the Fed saying, hey, we're going to stop the bond buying program soon. That was the main message that I seemed to get from the meeting yesterday. And of course, they said, we might raise rates at this point, at that point. I don't know what to believe with that anymore. So we did get that, but it seems like they say, we're going to start raising rates soon. Well, I lived through the 0% rates for, I don't even know how many years it was, almost 10 years. Or I think it was even over 10 years when we had the 0% rates, and they raised them for a little bit, and then COVID hit, and then they went back to zero again, pretty much. So whenever they say, we think we're going to raise rates, it just seems like a broken record. So I really didn't factor that too much into my thinking as I was doing it. But when they say they're going to stop buying the bonds, that does kind of raise an eyebrow a little bit. You can see today the 10-year note is selling off, so we are going down a little bit in the bond area. And so my in-the-money covered calls on IEF are now out of the money, but it's a close enough range to where I'm not really taking much action on it. And so we have that going on, the VIX going below 20 again. So I think I disagree with you. I think there has been a lot that's been happening over the course of the last couple days, Mark. But with that, that's what's lighting up my tape at this point. And silver's not moving. That's pretty much everything that I'm seeing.
I must have missed all this action. I was busy looking elsewhere. I didn't see all the action you referred to, sir. Nothing happened. Nothing happening behind the curtain. Mr. Rock Lobster, sir, we didn't get a chance to talk to you on Monday. So what were your thoughts as all the markets are falling out of bed on Monday, sir, and then now on Thursday, pretty much right back to where we started, sir?
My thoughts on Monday were close all of the long haul that I had.
You got like 8 seconds on Monday morning. Go, close them.
Yeah, actually, the good thing about Monday was...
No, it lasted a little longer on Monday, yeah.
It at least it lasted till about, I would say, 2 Eastern, right? VIX traded probably 28.5. And at that point, I think I was probably 80% out of my long. I always keep the 20% like next day, see what happens. And by like middle of that day, pretty much everything was on. Like, okay, now I'm sitting on some puts. I do have some upside left. I added another back spread at a higher, kind of at a higher level. But we'll see. But now I feel like, I can go for a little bit longer ride with the puts that I have, at least vol puts anyway. But we actually got to move to 28. We had a scare with Evergrande. That was part of it. The Fed was this week, so there's always a little bit of illiquidity into that Fed this week. You got the inflation thing, although commodity stocks do not. I mean, if you look at them, I think they've given up their entire gains for 2021. So we might have this transitory inflation that lasts a while, but it's not in a lot of the commodity stocks. And I take gold out of that because I think gold has just sort of become a little bit more fear. But generally, like Mike said, a lot happened because somehow the Fed slipped in that they're going to stop buying bonds by June of 2023, that's a real possibility. And we rallied. So I will stick with my, let's just call it my number one rule, that markets rally into certainty and they sell off in uncertainty. So the actual that the Fed has a plan that they could sort of extricate themselves from all their busyness, the market likes it. Oil stocks like it. Stocks that are supply chain sensitive, like let's say Walgreens and grocers and stuff like that, they like it a little bit more as well too. So like it feels okay. Like, and again, we were already at an all-time high, as Mike said. So the big question is what has not changed, and I will say this, is the way the market looks at the downside put. So I was just going over with one of our fixed income guy, Griff, at Option Pit. Since we're growing by leaps and bounds, we have to get some expert in fixed income. But what is not really coming in much, I would say, and especially on a rally, 2 days of rally, 3, right? So today's Thursday, so Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That downside skew has not gone away at all. So I've just watched it. It's kind of like, okay, it's not changing. It's not changing. It's not changing. So those numbers, the way I measure them, are about as high as they've ever been. So that part of the market has not gone away, even though we're rallying, which is super good, right? It's great. But those options, the willing sellers of like 2, 3, 4 weeks out, they're not doing it enough to crush the curve lower, from what I can tell by how I watch this. So that part is staying, which probably means the low for VIX would be about 16, and we'll probably see it, next week at some point.
Indeed. Let's move on out, see what we're seeing out there in today's market. Seeing a wee bit of paper on the tape, listeners. VIX at about 350,000 contracts right now. It's pretty decent paper out there, given that the ADV is around 445, so less than 100K away from their ADV out there. In VIX land, Probably going to hit it today unless the second half of the session really just falls apart and not much happens for the rest of the day. SPY already at 3.5 million contracts. The ADV is about 4.75 million out there, so looking pretty robust in SPY land as well. The S at about 856,000 contracts. The ADV is now north of 1.5 million, 1.51 to be precise. So numbers out there in the S looking firm, looking robust. The Qs closing in on 1 million contracts, 920,000 contracts on the tape in Qs land. The ADV about 1.4 million. And small caps also looking pretty robust at 402,000 contracts. The ADV 644, of course, if you want more small cap action and everything else over there on the world of futures options. Stay tuned for TWIFO coming up in a little over an hour. Just hit next on your device of choice if you're listening after the fact on the aforementioned plethora of outlets that are carrying the on-demand. I can't even keep up with it all now. I can't imagine how you folks do. All right, let's go on out now to the most active single names out there. A pretty active, busy day in the single names. Cost you a little over $250,000 to break into the top 10 today. That's not nothing. That gets you all the way to a newcomer to our top 10. This is SoFi, a.k.a. Social Finance. This is, they provide, student loan refinancing, a lot of mobile-based financial products. So very much aimed squarely at the Gen Z type crowd out there. Good for 256,000 contracts, even though it's only up a quarter, about 1.5% today, trading around $17.10 right now. So it's not underlying that's doing it out there, but whatever is driving the paper, there is some paper to be found out there. And so if I should say, if you go back to Monday's session, this thing is up about almost $3. So it's had a good week out there for SoFi land. Number 9, Bank of America usually used to have the old symbol twins, Bank of America and Boeing. Don't really see these two in the top 10 anymore. They've been usurped by AMD and AMC, who, spoiler alert, are both in the top 10 again today. But Bank of America coming in at number 9, also 256,000. So a pretty tight race to break into our top 10 today. Number 8, AMD, the first half of our symbol twinology there. 281,000 contracts on the tape for AMD. Number 7, we've got our old friend out there, BlackBerry. When's the last time I said BlackBerry on this show, listeners? It's been quite some time. But they are back on the movers and shakers today, trading $10.85, ticker, of course, BB. 1085 up $1.30, 13.5%. Good day for BlackBerry. They had good earnings, apparently. What is BlackBerry up to these days? I need to dig in there and see what is driving the tape out there today for BlackBerry. Of course, the BlackBerry of today, a very different beast from back in the days of the Blackberries and Rims and all that good stuff. When I remember Rim was one of the hot pits over there in the SIBO. People were literally fighting to get in out there. Different beast out there today, but good for 298,000 contracts on the tape for number 7. Number 6, Facebook, 318,000 contracts. Number 5, NVIDIA, 363,000 contracts. Number 4, the other half of our symbol twinology, to coin a phrase here, 365,000 contracts. Number 3, it's a day that ends in Y. That means Palantir is looking pretty robust. Actually, I almost said 3, but 489,000 contracts on the tape, closing in on 500,000 contracts for Palantir, up 6% today, or about $1.70, trading $29.10. So this is another one. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. It got back pretty much all of its sell-off from this week and then some. It was down about $3 lower in the nadir of Monday and Tuesday's action, and now up $3 from there. So getting it all back. And number 2, the fruit company. Yes, I said number 2. Only 645,000 contracts on the tape for Apple. That's pretty light for them. That's about a third of what we normally see them putting up on a pretty active day out there. So, and the stock's up about a little over 0.5%, about 0.6%. Let's see how it looks compared to Monday's level. Monday got down to 141.5, so it's up a little over $5 from there, about 5.25. So it's had a nice rebound out there in fruit company land. Not enough to topple the big dog for today, at least, which is Tesla. 733,000 contracts. It's up a whopping 47 cents today, trading right around 752.5. On Monday, let's see, it sold off to 721 and change, so it's up about 31, looks like 31.30 or so from where it sold off to on Monday's show. So a big move for Tesla as well, and of course, good enough for number 1. Even if it's kind of an anemic number one, 733,000. We usually expect our number one to be closing in on 1 million by this time of the day. Let's go on out now to the land of earnings. We did have some names popping off this week, and we do have some earnings move results, and earnings season reports hot off the presses from our friends over there at Orat's Land. Let's break down first what we had popping off this week. Monday, one of the big names was Leonard Holmes. Tuesday, we had Cracker Barrel. How's it going on the high-end rocking chair and fried chicken front? FedEx, of course, a big name. A lot of people are watching these days. Logistics is just a nightmare out there. Wednesday, General Mills and KB Home. General Mills has been popping up on our unusual activity radar of late. So how did they fare? Thursday, Darden Restaurants, Rite Aid, Nike, and Costco. We actually have some earnings move results reports for today. Darden Restaurants we have here. Let's see. They were trading at 151 and change coming into their announcement. They were pricing in 4.6%, and they delivered, get this, listeners, 4.8%. Looks like they have rallied a wee bit since then. Of course, remember, these reports are kind of taken in the initial blush, the initial move from the earnings right around the open. Now, if you wait a little longer, your frame of reference changes. That may change. Looking at Darden Restaurants right now, they're up $9.50. So they're up about 6 1/3%. So they've rallied quite a bit since this morning even. They're up over $2 from there. So again, frame of reference, if you waited a little bit, you actually got a little bit more bang for your buck here in this earnings announcement. But that's not what they're measuring here. They're measuring the initial move compared to what was being priced in. RAD, good old Rite Aid. They were at 15 1/4 going into their announcement. They were popping off today before the bell as well. They were pricing in 11.6%, and they delivered about 8%. So underperformance yet again. They're trading right around $14 as of this report, and they're still trading right around $14. So a little bit of underperformance there. Let's go out to KB Homes and see what they have in store for us. Perhaps they shall break the tie here. We have one winner and one loser on the day so far. KB Homes, they popped off yesterday, and they went into their announcement $40.91. They were pricing in 5.1%. Did they deliver? No, they delivered 2.6%. They were trading right around $41.97. So they're up a little more than $1 coming into today, and they've given some of that back now, $41.80. So they're up even less. So we have two playing out kind of the way we expect in the pandemic, and one of them bucking the trend out there. Let's see how the season is shaping up. We're still hovering at about 86%, listeners. So not a lot of action out there on that front. Looks like week 4 is up to 107% now. It's been adjusted. I think it was 106%. And this week, still holding at a break even, 100%, which in light of the pandemic, it still counts as green because you're not losing money. That's a rare thing these days from an earnings vol perspective. Let's see who we've got. We still got some names popping off this week as well. Like I mentioned earlier, we still have some names popping off today. We got Costco after the bell. They were at 452 1/3 going into this report. They were pricing in $10.50. In the past, they've moved a little over 11, about 11.10. So pricing in a little bit less vol. And that seems to be the smart play these days. A Nike also after the bell today. They were trading right around 157.5 as of the time of this report. They were pricing in $8.31. In the past, they moved $9.30. So knocking a whole buck off their straddle out there in Nike. And again, seeing these numbers today, even though it seems like this is one of the best seasons we've seen since the pandemic began, it's still hard to argue against taking more of that juice out of the straddle. And that seems to be what they're doing out here. Is this the right play? We shall find out. Again, if you want all this information for yourselves, listeners, you know where to go. TheOptionsInsider.com. And then go to the Options News and Articles tab. And then you can see all these reports for yourself. Earnings move results, and earnings season. Let's do one more. They're popping off next week on the 30th. The other BB name, Bed Bath and Beyond. Let's see. They're pricing in. They're at 23.5 going into this report. They were pricing in $2.62. In the past, they've moved $3.40. So yeah, taking a lot of bloom off that rose as well out there in Bed Bath and Beyond. Is that the proper course of action? Again, it's kind of hard to argue given what we've seen out there of late that it is not the proper course of action. And we shall see as we keep on rolling. It is time to unleash the beast. It is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for The Odd Block.
All right, everybody, let's do it. Let us unleash the Eye of Sauron, see where it fixes its fiery gaze today. And I haven't had a chance to look at any of these coming into showtime, so I am fresh as a daisy on these, just like you listeners. Let's parse them all together, see what we find. And first, we are fixing our gaze overseas to Ericsson. Haven't talked about Ericsson in quite some time. Ticker symbol ERIC, E-R-I-C. Of course, this is the Swedish telecom out there, listeners. And trading today, let's see, what are they up to today? Decent day, up nearly 40 cents, or about 3.25%, trading right around 11.45 out there in Ericsson. And of course, it's been an interesting year out there for Ericsson. A year ago, it was trading $10.50, so about a buck shy of where it is right now. And it kind of vacillated, got up north of where we are right now, up to $12.44, so pretty much exactly $1 north of it on October 22nd. Then it sold off again down to $11.25. Rallied all the way back up to $12.50 again on December 8th. Sold off again to about $11.50 in January. Then it spiked again. February 11th got up to about $13.50. And then it sold off again by March 8th, was trading $12 again. And then it rallied all the way up to, looks like its 52-week high on April 21st. 1532 had a nice level out there, obviously well north of where we are right now. Then started selling off again. By June 23rd, it was back down to about $12.50, right about a buck north of where we are right now. But then it rallied again up to about 13. It looks like 13.25 on July 14th, and then it sold off hard right after that. It went from 13.25 down to, by the 16th, was trading 11.82. By the 19th, was trading about $11.50. And then it kept selling off down to pretty much hit its 52-week low. This week, looks like, on this Monday, it hit 10.30. That's a 52-week low. So it's had pretty much a $5 range, around 15.50 to the upside and about 10.50, a little bit shy of that to the dark side there. So we are at the lower end of that 52-week range, even though it has rebounded a little bit since Monday's levels out there. Yeah, we hit about 10.30 on the low, and we're trading 11.44 today. It's up about a buck and change on the week. Let's see what our Eye of Sauron found. Is someone scooping calls, betting on a rebound? What are they up to out there? No, that is not the case. Looks like they are blasting away at in-the-money puts, Mr. Rock Lobster. Interesting. 12,000 of the October 14 puts. Yes, I said 14 handle puts, listeners. So these are about $2.50 in the money puts. Paper coming in and trading these for $273. They were $255 at $299. What an interesting market, $299. They went up for $273. So a bit of anyone's guess what they actually did with these bad boys. They kind of split the uprights there. I mean, you could argue that maybe this was a bit of a line in the sand put. It's a meaty one, if that is indeed the case. You don't see a lot of $2.50 in the money puts being sold all too often. If that's the case, someone really wants themselves some of that stock. An intriguing choice. If you're wondering, that's about a 46.5 vol, listeners. Let's see where the earnings are. The earnings are in this cycle. The earnings are October 19th. So they are getting some earnings juice with this as well. So they sold in the money puts on a name that's kind of had some turbulence of late. Decent vol, but also have earnings coming up within the cycle for, let's just see it. Is that within? Oh, you know what? It's not. It's right outside expirations on the 15th. That's right. It's on the 15th this month. So they just miss earnings. That makes a little bit more sense now. All right. So pre-earnings, line in the sand puts here. Still bit of a weird one. Mr. Rock Lobster, a funky one here. Pretty beefy, maybe even meefy. They're getting up there. Puts here. What are your thoughts? You think they sold them? You think they potentially bought them? And what are your thoughts on a pretty beefy transaction here in Ericsson, sir?
Well. Beefy transaction. So I don't think we normally qualify this type of put as line in the sand. What do you think on that? I'm saying,
I guess they've already crossed the line, haven't they? Yeah. So it's more of a I don't know, look out below. Or didn't we used to call these the death trap puts, didn't we?
Right, where you like you sell the in the money put, and it's like the problem with selling an in the money put, in my mind, I guess, is you've got all the risk of the stock, but none of the upside.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You got, okay, but
for a whopping 20 odd cents, you're doing all this, right?
Yeah. So it is an odd, okay, so let's say you don't think Ericsson's going to do a lot, but maybe you want to take the stock and, you sell the put for $2 lower, and you're generating a lower entry price. Okay. I'll concede that one. Okay. You're generating a lower entry price. However, I don't think most people that sell puts got rich selling the at the money ones. I mean, I could see it as a day trade, like yesterday, and the Fed came out with their thing, and you're like, okay, I'm going to whack out these puts that are close to the money because I think we're going up and they're going to crush the vol. I can see that, for a trade for sure. But you're selling these puts that are, 3 weeks to go and they're at the money. Anyway, to me, it's just a weird one. That being said, I think Ericsson could be one of the winners of the, I believe anyway, they're part of that 5G thing. And, the U.S. government, at least it used to be, but I think they still are, they're trying to wean people off of Huawei 5G. And, so Ericsson, Nokia, some of these companies, I think there's something to the fact that they could have a little gain brewing. You know what I mean? To be winning at Huawei's expense. So I can see why. Okay, I can see why that people want to do this. But at least in this case, it's a pretty big chunk of puts to sell. Again, mid market. You're looking where the stock was. Did they trade parity? 1138. I mean, not quite parity because that's 27 cents. To be honest, it's a head scratcher. I could see how a liquidity provider or somebody would want to accommodate this on the sell side because they were over parity. And the 14 calls have no value at all, which also gives you another inkling into, Ericsson. The 12 calls are a nickel. October 12 calls are a nickel. The 11 calls, which are 45 cents in the money, are 50 cents, a nickel over parity. So the liquidity provider market does not think Ericsson can move more than 15 cents in the next 3 weeks. So this person clearly thinks something is going to happen that, the liquidity provider market does not think can happen, will happen, or will ever happen. So listen, believe me, we've been wrong plenty of times. Liquidity providers have been wrong and right. The liquidity providers can only be as right as the order flow, right? That's coming in. And I think this is what's important to parse about this one is somebody basically paid over parity for the puts when the calls are worthless. Now, either they don't know call put parity and they just don't care, and they wanted to short 1.2 million shares of stock for $11.27. Okay, certainly possible. When it was trading 1138, or somebody accommodated these puts and tried to buy the stock lower. Now, since that trade went up, the stock is higher. So my guess is, I don't believe in coincidences, is that the customer tried to sell the in the money puts. Presumably they knew what they were doing, and the stock is up a little bit, and the options are just dirt cheap. The 12 calls with 3 weeks to go are a nickel, or 6 cents. So, like I said, go figure that one out. You have seen a little volume on the 11 put strike and the 12 call strike. You could do the 11-12 risk reversal for a nickel credit. Pretty much all you want, it looks like. So, like I said, the option prices currently are not showing a lot of interest in the name. This 12,000 lot put, if they were actually able to sell these puts, again, right now at 11:45, they're looking pretty good. But I think that's a to be watched on this one, because that literally, like, that put sale is like a shout in the wilderness. There's so little volume, the vol is so low, and there's so little like the Jan 20. Here's the listeners give it. The Jan 2022 12 calls are 45 cents. Okay, and they're only 55 cents out of the money with 3.5 months to go, almost 4 total months. So again, ultra low vol, and so the market's not expecting a lot from Ericsson. It doesn't do very much. However, it was $12 only a couple of weeks ago. So again, like head scratcher supreme on this one. The stock actually does exhibit some kind of move. So over the last year, you'd be surprised it has a range of about $11 to a little over $14. So there's some range there. So again, I would think this is a put sale. I'm not quite sure as far as the earnings go, but apparently I think Ericsson still makes money. It's just kind of a sleepy old. But again, if this person's selling the puts, this might be one people would want to follow along. The options are relatively inexpensive. So I guess, again, an interesting one of just parsing it that way. And we'll see what happens.
We shall watch this one indeed. A formerly sleepy one. This trade, not sleepy at all. Pretty sizable. Our audience in the live chat liking it. Mr. Limited says, wow, someone's loving themselves. Some Eric. Options Queen agrees. She says, wow, indeed. So Limited also says, these aren't lying in the sand. This guy is drowning in the deep end. Yeah, he's gone into the death trap, as we say here. We shall see. Deep in the money puts in a name like Ericsson. This bear is watching. We shall return to this one. Meanwhile, let's go discover some new ones together, shall we? Let's go out to everyone's favorite OGI. Ticker symbol OGI. This is Organigram Holdings. In case you're wondering, this is an Edibles and Infusions Corp. So they're on the cannabis front out here. Trading right now a whopping $2.53, up about 5% today. This is the name. Let's see. Over the course of the past year, what have they been up to? A year ago was trading about a half of this, less than half actually, trading over only about $1.11 or so. And let's see, they kind of hung out there for a while, started rallying in January, got up to about $1.65, and then looks like they got caught up in the fever of the beginning of the year as well. They got up to $6, actually $6.45 was their high on the year on February 10th. My goodness. And then boom, gave it all back on March 8th, got down to $2.68. So they still had some of it, but they gave most of it back. And then they rallied again up to $4.44 on March 12th. And then they began the sell-off yet again by April 20th, down to $2.34 again. It's like they threatened over 3 again. They got up to about 3.25 on June 8th, everyone's favorite day, listeners. And then they've been selling off pretty much ever since June 8th, down to where we find ourselves today. Let's see, earlier this week, they got down to about $2.32. And right now up to about $2.53. So up about 20 cents this week. So not a bad run for them this week. But on the year, quite the sordid tale it has been, as it has been for many of these names out here in the cannabis space, your sundials and everything else. They've had some topsy-turvy runs, a lot of them now hovering at the lower end of those 52-week ranges, as is Ogie. Good thing the Viceroy is in here. He would not approve of trading so many contracts on such a cheap name. But what did our Eye of Sauron find out here in our friend Ogie? It was the Nove 2/2 going up 10,009 times. I love when they stick those little bits at the end. Obviously something lurking in the book, a 9 lot. They took that too. 10,009 of the Nove 2/2, lifting the offer for 25 cents. They said, hey, how are these calls? Okay, we'll take them all. There were 10,000 offered there, and they bought them all. Plus 9. The stock was pretty much right where it is right now, 248 or so. So not a big change in the stock from when this trade went up. And there are earnings. It doesn't look like these are in the expiration cycle because the earnings are on November 29th. And we've got expiration in November on the 19th. So no earnings juice baked into these. These are just what they appear to be on the surface. Straight up now at the money call love here. So you're coming in You're buying 10,000 contract, Mr. Rock Lobster, on a $2.50 name. You're spending 10% of the value of that stock, 25 cents. Or if you're curious, about a 70 vol, listeners, to play in this stock through the end of November. I know what the Viceroy would think on these, but what say you, sir? It's a lot of paper in a $2.50 name. Everyone's favorite, Ogie, sir.
On this OG love? Ogie love?
Ogie, OG, call it whatever you want. OG sounds good too.
I know this. You're not going to care about this, but OG is also a very famous router bit to create a double curve, by the way. I think it was pioneered by the Romans, the shape. It's an OG bit.
Oh.
I just threw that out there for you to add to your woodworking.
I will admit your knowledge of woodworking bits does exceed mine, sir. I will doff my cap to you in that arena. Most other things about Roman history, I think I take those. But in the Roman woodworking specific vertical, I cede the territory to you, sir.
You are. And you know, it is rare that you just cede this territory so willingly to me as well. I'm impressed.
I'm feeling generous today. What can I say?
So you know, the first test of at the odd block success story buying calls is always what, right? You buy calls, and on the same day you buy them, they're higher. So from that point of view, I would say these calls, even though the Viceroy would be spinning his hat sideways and backwards, they are successful. This company is organic something, who knows what it is. But it's organic, so maybe it's just organic meat or pot or something or other. Again, from a price point of view, let's just say we have seen these stocks go meme crazy before. This was a pretty good chunk of change from a volume perspective for this name. You know, they did buy an extra month, and there's all kinds. Again, I'm looking at all kinds of volume here through time. So, you know, a chunk of options traded, and then was followed up by, you know, all kinds of volume, kind of jumping on, paying 30 up to 35, 34 cents for these things. So as of right now, who am I to say the trade is right because it's making money? But interesting, again, this is something worth watching because, again, it's out of the money, but, you know, not crazy. Again, 77 vol for a $2.50 stock is not totally outrageous at all, with a 60-day carry. So I don't theoretically not an outrageous price to pay for these options. You know, although I would probably just go buy the stock. It has not gotten above $3 though for quite a while. So again, but it has potential. It has, you know, it has made that move to 275. So, and again, and it was a memer, right? It traded to $6 in meme land. So again, I think a reasonable price to pay for these calls, given the meme potential of this name.
Look at you, the meme potential of this name. This is normally a trade you would scoff at, sir, but now you're talking about the meme potential. Intriguing. What have you done to the Rock Lobster meme traders out there? We're going to come back to Ogie, OG, call it what you will out there. We'll come back to these, see if this guy quite literally swinging for the fences here in OG. If it's going to pay off for them, or this thing's going to be trading at $6 again when we come back on the No of Expiration show, and this guy's going to be laughing all the way to the bank, or if this guy's going to have dropped a nice girlfriend and perhaps her best friend's Ferraris out there. We shall see. Or your boyfriend. Hey, we don't judge. As we keep on rolling to our final name out here. It's too bad the meatball is in here because he's no fan of our last name here. This is Darden Restaurants, ticker symbol DRI. And, you know, I just had it up, of course, but I had to go back to OG. I was so fascinated by OG. Just go back to Darden Restaurants. There we go. DRI trading right now 160 and change. Had a decent year. Today, also a good day today, up 6.5%. So they're popping. Even though I think we discovered on our most recent show, maybe it was VolViews last week, I forgot, that they no longer own Red Lobster. So what's the point? If you're not getting the biscuit premium when you're buying this stock, what is the point of it, I ask you? But someone's liking it today. Up 9 almost $10 today. nearly 6.5% out there, trading a little bit north of 160 right now. So a good run here today for Darden Restaurants. On the years, you might imagine a pretty decent year for them as well. A year ago, we're not quite half. They were pretty close. They were $90 exactly, actually, a year ago, which is strange. And they kind of hovered there for a while until looks like November 9th. They popped up to 120, had a nice little pop, and then they kind of gave a lot of it back down to 106, hovered there for a while, then slowly drifted north again. By January, when all the memes were popping off, they got up to 127, then they kind of sold off again back to 112. Then they started another protracted upside run, getting all the way up to, looks like, where are we here? 148, almost 149 on March 26th. Then they gave it up again back on May 12th down to 131. And then right back up again on July 12th. They got up to 149, almost 150. And then they kept rallying pretty much. Looks like the 52-week high actually came earlier today. How high? Yeah, they got up to about 164.25 today. So they've had an even better run. They're giving some of that back now out there. So Darden Restaurants, who knew it? The darling of the meme scene these days, Darden Restaurant, headquartered in Orlando, Florida. I did not know that either. Of course, they have Olive Garden as well and Longhorn Steakhouse, in addition to the aforementioned biscuit factory known as Red Lobster. But let's see what our Eye of Sauron found out there today, listeners. By the way, Darden Restaurants is popping off out there today. Let's see. They've done 11 times their ADV out there right now in Darden Restaurants. So their average, actually, they're over that now because they do almost not even 2,500, about 2,400 and change is their ADV, and they're over 27,000 contracts right now on the tape. So a pretty robust day for Darden Restaurants. A lot of it coming in this one trade that our Eye of Sauron found out here. It was, looks like a risk reversal / collar. I might lean towards the latter out there, listeners. It was the AAPL 150 puts going up for $1.90. Paper buying these a dime through the offer, listener. They really wanted to get these. These were a 33 vol, and then turning around and selling 5,232 of the AAPL 170 calls for 59 cents, 6 cents through the bid. They really wanted to sell these as well. These are about a 25 vol, listeners. More have gone up since to the tune of about 6,500 total on the puts and 8,600 on the calls. Hard to tell if all that's related, though. There's a lot of paper going up in Darden today. But at the very least, this risk reversal / collar did go up 1-to-1 early on before they added a little bit more of the ratio to it. Mr. Rock Lobster has the whiff of a collar to it out here in Darden. I guess given today's pop, it's not that surprising. What are your thoughts here on potentially a collar in Darden restaurants, sir?
You know, I Mark, he doesn't like the Olive Garden. But apparently somebody does.
No, exactly. Not him. He hates these things.
Certainly somebody does. I think maybe that all the people that were stuck at home having to cook during the pandemic that didn't know how to cook, they are more than happy to eat that tasty Olive Garden pasta primavera thing or whatever they serve. So I actually have never eaten at a Red Lobster before. Do you know that Red Lobster is not allowed in Maine by law? Did you know that?
It impugns the good name of lobster. Is that what it is?
Well, let's just put it this way. I don't think they're serving Maine lobster at the Lobster at the the Red Lobster. Anyway, I'm being a bit of a lobster snob on that one. But anyway, interesting trade. This is one where like Darden actually I think is a pretty well-run business considering they still found a way to eke out profits during the pandemic. Maybe they got money from the government or whatever, but they're growing their dividend, and apparently they think people are going back to restaurants. And this is trading at quite a multiple too, I would add. So interesting name, but this is a pretty good rally for a steak business, right? They serve steak, and they and pasta and all that other kind of stuff. But it's I guess I should laugh because look at Chipotle, right? What is it, like a 500 times earnings or something? I do not get the valuation of Chipotle at all. But
you never had a tasty, delicious Chipotle burrito, sir?
I did, but it was so salty. It just I felt like I was just being just beaten up.
Look at you, the food snob. You turn your nose up at Red Lobster, turn your nose up at Chipotle, sir. You're just the foodie up there in the far reaches of Maine.
I actually know the restaurant that Chipotle was modeled after in San Francisco. It was La Taqueria, which is still in the Mission. It's between like 19th and 25th Street, and quite possibly is probably the best taco burrito place, in California. It's totally fantastic. And basically, I think that chef walked in, is like, okay, this is the future. There's also another one on Valencia called Pancho Villa, which are fantastic. Like, all the food is totally homemade. Anyway, I always love the Mission in San Francisco. It's a great neighborhood. But this guy made billions of dollars. He basically franchised their concept, but he didn't pay them. So I guess, sometimes that's what makes a good businessman.
Smart man indeed out there. I'd love to talk more about Chipotle, but we got to keep on rolling. Let's get some folks on really quickly. It is time for the mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the mail block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the mail block, the portion of the show where you guys take the reins. Man, we ran off on Odd Block. I didn't think it was going to go that long. We have, let's see, some polls going right now, hot and heavy. Get over there at Options if you want to vote where VIX is going to close the week. For all the bubbling, elevated, or very elevated, I won't tell you what's winning right now, but it does seem like bubbling has resurged now that we are back in the sub 20 arena out there. But earlier in the week, a different story, obviously, out there. Let's go to this one here. Let's do a twofer here. One from Durzo. It says, good afternoon. Which broker would you recommend for me to start learning to trade options using a paper trading account? Thank you. So specifically from the paper trading. So Uncle Mike, if you have anything to add there, specifically from a paper trading, in the past, our go-to has been TOSAW for a lot of this stuff. That environment may have changed a little bit. Do you have a updated recommendation for our friend Durzo here, Uncle Mike? He's looking at it solely from the paper trading perspective, sir.
From what I can tell, I think TOSAW still does have a pretty good paper trading platform. But one thing that I would say, if you have the ability to get some type of beginner education, I would do it. And even before opening a TOSAW account, I would give a call to the boys over at the Option Pit, because they can definitely steer you in the right direction. Because if you're just looking to learn, I can tell you this, in my 20 years doing this, I've made a lot of mistakes, and so have those guys. And if they're willing to educate you and tell you about their mistakes, a lot of times what you pay for will oftentimes make up for the mistake that you would have made had you not paid them for the education. So those are the two places that I would go.
There you go. Yeah, it's hard to beat that platform recommendation. Again, we have some questions now going forward with the Schwab takeover, how that's going to look going forward, but it's hard to go wrong with them right now. Mr. Rock Lobster, do you have additional recommendations for paper trading platforms that you like? And then also, we have this coming in from the live chat right now from Luigi. He says, wow, one more thing me and the Lobster have in common. I guess he's talking about woodworking. He says, he wants to know, are you a turner or a cabinet maker? I converted to almost all turning a while ago. Of course, my wife would say I'm really good at making sawdust. I have no idea what any of that means. So are you a turner or a cabinet maker? And then B, paper trading platforms. What's your favorite, sir?
I basically make whatever my wife tells me to make. So I can turn, although it's not an expertise thing. Built a lot of cabinets and building a paddleboard and just whatever. So if it's wood, basically I try to build it. The short answer is I still think TOSAW is pretty much the best platform for somebody to learn on. But you have to understand what makes the graphs work. So, don't forget that, like Mike said, they have these graphs, but you have to understand the logic behind, how they work. But I think it's probably the easiest way. I think that the TradeHawk platform, the option pricing is very good. And the paper trade and the functionality is very similar. So that's another one that are both pretty good. As far as learning how to paper trade, I think they're the easiest platforms to kind of just like put in a trade and just see it go up. And they're relatively intuitive. On the flip side, I think IB, because I have 3 platforms open right now, actually 4. because I'm always trying to see what's going on. But I think IB gives you the best fills, from what I can tell. Somewhere between IB and Schwab, funny enough, as far as fills go.
Well, TD is Schwab now, all under one umbrella over there, which again is kind of what gives me pause about recommending some of these platforms. I know the platform holders listen because they have written me in their comments whenever I slam some of their platforms every now and then. So they're out there listening. As we keep on rolling into our final segment, it is time to go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, listeners, tell you what we're keeping an eye on until our next episode on Monday. Uncle Mike, will start with you. The man behind the curtain, he giveth and he taketh away this week. Mr. Uncle Mike, he is in the process of giving it all back to us. What are you keeping an eye on for throughout the weekend into Monday's show, sir?
We'll see what he gives back. I'm watching to see if we can have some type of continuation. I think that with where we are in the marketplace right now, the VIX is down at 8 in the mid 18s, but we still do have a ways to go before we hit our all-time highs again. We're roughly 80 points away from that at this point in the S&P 500. So seeing if we can make another run at it. It might happen next week, but if it gets up there, I'm going to be really having a hard time hanging on to the deltas that I'll have at that stage. I'll probably trim a little bit if we make another run at it until we close above the all-time high again. So that's what I'm looking at.
All right, you know what happened the last time you said you were trimming some of your deltas, right? We saw Monday, so you realize you've just invoked that again. So well done. The next sell-off, that's on you, sir.
I said if.
That's on you. If. Our listeners may put you back in that county lockup if you're not careful, sir. So watch out. Watch out what's going on over there in the land of Uncle Mike. Mr. Rock Lobster, same question for you while you're busy turning and cabinet making and all these other crazy verbs. What are you keeping an eye on for until our next episode, sir?
Can we break a new low VIX? Do we go back to 450 SPX? 4,500 SPX, and what I'm looking at now mostly is a lot of the sectors that got kind of blistered here, like supply chain sensitive, like grocery stores and the pharmacies, stuff like that, like big retailers like Big Lots and Dollar Tree. If you look at some of those, market way up here, those stocks actually don't look so bad. Again, a lot of the commodities, I would say outside of the gold and gold miners, stuff that people or, businesses use, EV use, like copper, silver miners, stuff like that. Again, all of the numbers, a lot of these stocks are even for the year. And we are way the heck up here. So I look at stuff like that. And, if the Fed says, hey, we don't have to buy any bonds possibly in January of 2022, like, again, that to me is confidence and clarity. And, I'm sure there'll be lots of political mumbo jumboing going back and forth. And as long as Congress doesn't screw things up too bad, we're sitting right here. I wouldn't be surprised if we're a little higher by the end of the year, maybe 5-6%. I know that's crazy, but it ain't that far away.
It also isn't far away, listeners, is the end of the show. In fact, it is upon us now. And if you need more in your ear holes, don't worry. Stay tuned. If you're listening live in the Secret Club, get a beverage, hit the restroom. We'll have some fun stuff beamed into the live. We'll be back in exactly half an hour to break down the world of futures, options, all the excitement lurking therein. But before we go, let's go back around the horn. Let's start with the Uncleest of Mikes. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, if they want to play the Where's Uncle Mike game and watch your cool videos, where should they go? What should they do?
Follow me on Twitter at Mike TOSAW. And if you're looking for a financial advisor who enjoys working in the option space, feel free to reach out to me as well. Check out my website at stcharleswealth.com.
And if you can guess where Uncle Mike is, you win fabulous prizes. And then maybe I just said that so his compliance won't get angry at him. You win something. just his undying respect. But check it out at Mike TOSAW on the old Twitters. TOSAW is the place to go. And Mr. Rock Lobster, if folks want to ask you questions about cabinetry and turning and whatever the heck else this stuff is, where should they go? What should they do?
Go to optionpit.com, go to memberships, all the different things you can get. And tune in to Mark's Big Money Flow show on Tuesday. Mark has been getting very handy with the order flow indicators that he's been using, and he's been generating some great results. And people in our pro chat room love it. And we're going to be selling that product starting in like Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. But his kind of kickoff is Tuesday. So if you go to optionpit.com, go check out that link and get yourself some Big Money Flow show.
Easy for you to say. You guys are just rolling out the products nonstop over there in the land of the pit. Check it out for yourselves. The product steamroller, the juggernaut. That is optionpit.com. Meanwhile, our juggernaut has to keep on rolling. We'll be back again in a little bit for Twyford. If you're listening after the fact, I should say. Just hit next on your device of choice. Then, of course, we're back again tomorrow. Vol Views, noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern. After that, in the secret club there for Options Oddities, 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern. A lot of crazy stuff popping off this week. I wonder what will make it onto the show this week. If you have suggestions, questions, and you're in the secret club, hit us up. Let us know. We'd love to hear from you folks. And we're back again on Monday. Another episode of The Option Block. We'll see you then.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.